Okay, so let's have a look at Wilfred Owen's Futility, which is a war poem, and as I recall, it was written from the trenches, so he knows what he's talking about. So let's have a look. Move him into the sun. Gently its touch awoke him once. At home, whispering of fields and song. Always it woke him, even in France, until this morning, this snow. If anything might rouse him now, the kind old sun will know. Think how it wakes the seeds. What once the claims of a cold star? Our limbs, so dear achieved, our sight, full-nerved, still warm, too hard to steer? Was it for this the clay grew tall? Or what made fetch a sunbeam's toil to break earth's sleep at all?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's really short, it's not big, but it's really impressive. Really touching and penetrating, I would say. What's your impression?
Well, there's always a sort of confusion, I feel, when faced with a poem with lots of it and lots of him.
Mm-hmm.
Something that seems quite difficult to decipher, and of course poetry that needs some sort of cipher to be deciphered is always difficult to appreciate. It's not
quite
sort of love at first
straightforward.
sight.
It's quite straightforward,
Okay.
isn't it? So it is a bit cryptic, because like you say, it doesn't say who, just him. But we have the feeling, we have the sensation, we have the background, nothing else. So what is it about?
Well, it's entitled Futility.
Mm-hmm. Good title.
Well, so it's about futility. Futility of what?
Mm-hmm.
Is it futility of war? Well, the war isn't mentioned in the poem, so unless we know something about Wilfred Owen's biography, we won't be able to immediately associate it with the war. Futility of life? Well, maybe. Futility of death? Well, it's possible too.
What are they trying to do here? What happens here? What are we looking at?
Well, we're looking at maybe a sort of there's sun in the picture, so I'm not sure we're looking at it, because that's not what you can always do with the sun. There are some fields, there are some seeds, and you might even say that there are somebody's limbs mentioned in the second part of it. So maybe it's just an exercise. Maybe it's an exercise in something else.
So what we are looking at is discovery of death. When death becomes a part of life rather than some theory. When they encounter it for the first time, maybe. And it's something new, a new phenomenon. And what is it, how it works, what happens is a complete mystery. So they're like children. So, if you don't know that it's a war poem, it might be a bit cryptical. Move him into the sun. Always it woke him until this morning and this snow. So even if we don't know, we know that now somebody is dead. The sun doesn't wake him. He's dead. Yeah, and he's cold, his limbs are not stirring. He's dead. Even if we don't know it's about a soldier, but we kind of know it's about a soldier. We can read it when we know, because it says France. Yeah. So it can be different poems. It can be a few different poems depending on whether you know it's about war and soldiers or whether you're just looking at it. But it's quite deep, and futility is a big question for us all, because we kind of like to believe that nothing is impossible, that we can do all we like, that we can be immortal, basically. And when we are trying and there's no response, when it's futile, then how do we feel?
Disappointed.
Maybe disappointed, maybe it's something even deeper than mere disappointment, because it changes your perspective. And if you believe you're almighty and immortal and all nice things, and suddenly there's one detail you can't cope with, it just takes one... Oh, that's nice image of you, very stylish. So it just takes one detail. If one detail doesn't work, then the whole picture doesn't work. If death stops being a game, an abstract idea, then it affects you as well. You stop being immortal, so that changes all. In the beginning of the poem, they, whoever they are, we the readers, they believe they are immortal, that death is just a game, easily overcome. But it changes by the end of the poem. Can you see it? Can you feel it? And I like how it's constructed. I like how it takes you through the feelings, sounds, rhythms, images, meanings. I mean, if you just look at the rhyme, is there a rhyme?
There is and there isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And the two words that rhyme in the first stanza are maybe once and France,
Mm-hmm.
Although there's a slight difference between the sounds of in the words. Snow and no,
Mm-hmm.
and somehow snow now and no, which
And so.
are the final and so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's sort of rhyme, but it's sort of...
So rhymes can be different. So we are used to strict rhymes, like cat, bat. Yeah, but you can play with the rhymes. They don't have to be straightforward. It can be sounds floating around and reconnecting. So sun and once, it's the same. Sun, once, the same sounds floating around. And sun and snow and no and now and France, once, sun. It's not so much about a strict rhyme as uncertainty of sounds floating around and mixing together. And again, you can't really have a strict rhyme in this poem because the whole poem is uncertain. The whole poem is probing, trying, establishing, finding, discovering. It's not certain, so the rhymes are not certain either. Seeds, sides, star, stir, toll, atoll, toil. Like trying different combinations and trying to see which works. Yeah, so we leave the stable grounds, we enter the fluctuation, the floating ideas, and they are a sort of alien to our normal perception, same as death is kind of alien to our normal perception. It's a kind of a veil or fog or mist that we find ourselves in, and we're trying to find our way in it, trying to cope with it somehow. It just floats and you can't put your finger on it. A kind of not there. Sun, once, France, is it the same? Is it different? Star, stir, what's changing? Yeah. It's really beautiful how it's done and how it's affecting us. So move him into the sun, the first line. We enter the poem and it's already weird. Him? Who is he? Why move him into the sun? So, but how do you feel when you get into the first line?
Well, just as I do with the rest of it when I first read it confused.
Yeah, but still we already have some settings. We have the introduction, we have him, and he is inert. We can move him. So we know it has to be some person, because you don't say him about an object. But at the same time, they say move him, like he's an object, so he's not really alive at the moment. Maybe he's unconscious, maybe he's dead, we don't know. But we can move him, we can affect him. And we have the sun. Move him into the sun, which is kind of positive. Yeah, we have the sun, we don't have darkness. Or we do have darkness, because if we move him into the sun, then now he's not in the sun, now he's in shadows. But we don't say it, we imply it. It can be just something normal, maybe, but by the way how it's him, we don't have a name, we don't have any description, any images, any specific words, and by the way how this he is passive, that makes us worry a little bit. Gently its touch awoke him once. So we have the sun. So we have who are the characters in the poem? Who are the characters?
Well, the sun, him, and someone who does the moving or someone who's being told, move him into the sun.
Yeah, and let's say the narrator. Apparently, it doesn't matter if it's one person or a few people. They act as one body. Yeah. They don't have different opinions, or they are there together. So somebody suggests move him into the sun, and nobody answers. They just try doing it because they're there in it all together. There's no separation. There's separation between him, who is inert, and them who are trying to do something to him. Mm-hmm. Okay. So. Okay. Okay. And the sun is gentle. Because the sun can be bad, the sun can be too hot for you, it can be burning. But here the sun is nice, is kind, is gentle. Its touch. Gently its touch awoke him once. So now we have the idea of sleep and waking. The sun which makes you awake. And they're like, oh, it worked once, it might work again. Yeah. So we move into the poem, and it's gentle. We don't have any horrible, creepy images. But that makes it the more horrible, the more scary as we read it, the more we realize what is happening there. Because here we have a man who is dead, and his comrades, his other soldiers, they're trying to bring him back to life by lying him in the sun as if he was just asleep. So they have this kind of childish belief that no, he's not dead, he's just sleeping, pining for the fjords. Yeah. And people wake up in the morning when the sun falls on the sunlight falls on their faces. So maybe that works. Let's try it. Your comment?
Well, certainly it is true, and even though they might not be performing this physical action in reality,
Mm-hmm.
they might have heard, they might know already that it's futile to do that. So they might be doing that, they might be contemplating doing that, they might be starting doing that and then stop in the midst of it, suddenly realizing that it's to no avail.
Mm-hmm. But just now they believe it might help. And we have something very private happening here, because the sun is touching partly his face, his body. We're not just looking at it, we have the word touch, and it's gentle. In a way you may say it's like a lover's touch, a gentle touch which wakes you, or a mother's touch. Yeah?
Yeah.
You don't really see it like a part of war. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the sun?
Well, we don't see the sun as part of war. Sometimes we have these pictures in literature or in films where the war is going on, and there are beautiful landscape surrounding people who are fighting and killing each other, and somehow the war doesn't fit the beauty of the world.
Well, it does in many ways, because if there's a battlefield, it would be devastated, because especially an old-fashioned battlefield with horses and lots of people. But then I guess the modern one as well with tanks and things. And, heavy
Yeah,
stuff.
but probably it was the First World War was already marking the beginning of modern warfare, where you have trenches, where much of what's happening is not under your control, it's not in your hands, in comparison to the classical battles you mentioned, with the horses, with the with soldiers and officers who are aristocrats, who are made willing to die for a good cause, and who are proud of being courageous, who often stand and do not go when there's shelling going on, because they think the battle is just a huge theater, the theater of the battle. Here, in the poem, there's nothing of that sort. I'm not really sure if, well, the war is going on, and of course you can always be courageous when the war is going on, but there's nothing in the poem about courage. But there's a lot about what courage leads us to, leading us to being, well, in this situation we'll find this narrator in all this situation will find his friend's body in.
So he didn't expect it apparently, and his comrades have no idea what's going on. They're just trying to find out. Again, like children who meet it for the first time in their lives.
Yeah. So they have heard that that was possible. They have probably imagined how it would look like. And yet, when it happens, it's always, well, it does look like what we expect of death, but in many respects it doesn't. There's something new and unexpected about a person's death, and that's how they come to realize it.
And we were talking about nature being unspoiled during war. Well, obviously, if it's a battlefield, then you don't really have much nature left there. Well, we have fields here. We have fields.
Yeah.
Apparently, we have battlefields and real fields, and also metaphorical fields, like fields of life. Well, speaking about nature at war, I guess Leo Tolstoy had really the best scene on the subject, with the sky and clouds. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, so we have their only hope, their only authority is the sun. They're not calling for a doctor. They're not calling for some general. They're calling for the sun. Then again, we know that the sun represents God very often, in many cases. So we can keep that in mind as well. So if the sun is God, then God is gentle. Gently touch water once. At home, whispering of fields unsown. So again, we have inner rhymes or inner fluctuation. Home, unsown, once, vogue. So if we, again, we can see it differently. We can think about normal sun waking him at home, normally. Or we can think about God giving life to person in the beginning of the person's life. Yeah?
Well, Yeah.
Because we talk about it in the poem, so we can talk about it here.
Yeah.
So what is home? What is home then? Move him into the sun, gently its touch awoke him once, and again, not just the sounds, the words, the order of the words is moving, fluctuating, floating. Not its touch gently awoke him once, but gently its touch awoke him once. Move him into the sun. The first word has the strong position. At home, whispering of fields and so on. So we don't have any images of war here. On the contrary, we think about home, safety. Home means safety. We have something gentle. We have whisper, which again is a soft voice or voice from the other side. And now we have those strange fields and so on. What are they? What are they doing here?
Well, they are trying to. They are trying this same old trick where some relate somebody. They are. It usually happens. As opposed to, it usually happens in the mornings. It usually happens at when someone finds himself at home, which is contrasted here in this poem with something which is not home, which is not as warm, as touching, as loving as a person's home might be. So there's these two phenomena are set in opposition, and then somehow the sun finds its place at this person's home. Again, there's another position, gently, as you say, gently, something that finds place at home, and move, which is more violent and which finds its place in the war field. Gentle touch, gentle whisper, instead of cries of terror, cries of caused by suffering or pain. Again, so there's home, which is sunny, nice, warm, with no dramatic sounds, but something that reminds us. Well, I'm not sure. Does it remind us of spring? If the fields are half sown, do they fields during the spring? I think so. So it's the spring, and later on there's going to be another opposition where spring is replaced by
winter.
Yeah,
that's a good point, because if it's whispering, then it's really quiet. Again, if you think about war, you think about something deafening. But here we are outside of space and time, because we are facing something more than war, death, which comes to everyone, and it doesn't matter if it's war or peace. It's still there. It overcomes the circumstances.
Death comes to everyone, but again, it can come to us while we are at home. A very a very usual scene depicted very often. Man on his deathbed, surrounded by his family, and it is tragic. But there's a sort of a transition that looks more or less normal when somebody dies in his deathbed. Here, the death happens, but there's no family around, only these comrades who surround him, who know him, and yet they probably don't know him as much as his family members know him. So again, there's probably nothing courageous about death at home in the familiar environment, but there's also something really sentimental and touching about it. While here, it's all violent, it's all the surroundings are absolutely different. Mm-hmm. They are hostile. They are foreign because again, the comrades, as I said, they are good. Maybe they are good friends. Maybe that person had made good friends among his comrades. But still, they are strangers. In many respects, they're strangers to him.
Yeah.
So a strange place somewhere in
so
France.
We have it in the next line, yes, because first here we have at home, and then we create this distance in France. Yes. And of course, there's something very bitter about having to die away from home in the middle of nowhere under the strange sky. But before we move to France, let's have another look at this line, whispering of fields unsown, which is the first time you read it, when you start reading it, when you don't know it's about war, or if you know it's about war but you just read it for the first time, it may look quite innocent, like you say, well, it's springtime, so the fields are unsown. But the more you look at it, the more creepy it gets. It reminds me of this image. Yeah. By the Russian artist Vereshchagin. Again, the first time you may look at it and it looks just fine, but the more you look at it, the more creepy it gets. What's it called? How do they call it? The lost funeral for the fallen. So when you look at it again and you think like, well, fields unsown, maybe they're unsown because there's a war on, and the fields are abandoned, and the life is not as it should be. All went wrong. The fields which are supposed to be rich and abundant and full of life are unsown, forgotten. Then, as you read the poem to the end and you look at it again, you realize it might be even more frightful or more horrible than that, because now we say later on that people are like seeds, and we have it in the Bible too. We have it in the New Testament, how a seed has to die to become more than it is. So, and then fields unsown, it's battlefields waiting for human bodies to be planted in them. So, depending on how you look at it, Whispering of Fields Unsown, the first time you read it, it's kind of nice because we have this gentle setting just before it, and in the wake of it, we still feel relaxed at home. So like, maybe fields and so on, maybe it's a bright future which is not decided. Yeah, if the field is unsown, then it's your blank page of life, and you can do what you like there. Then you read it again and say like, well, maybe it's about springtime. And you read it again, and it's like, maybe it's wartime. And you read it again, and maybe he's talking about that many people who are going to die there in the fields. How it's already waiting. It's really scary the more you look at it. It's such a tiny little thing, but it's really, really powerful. Whispering of fields and so on. And then again we have the negation unsown. Not empty, but waiting for the seeds to fall in them.
Yes, and that's where the connection happens between something at home and something at war. So the connection is this field full of dead corpses, full of corpses, full of dead bodies. Well, I don't know if it's time to move to the next line, because there's a connection also between something beautiful and full of joy and something tragic. I think it's also the connection in the word France, because France, to many of us, is beautiful, is full of nice little things that make life make for life pleasures,
like terrorists,
vineyards, wines, and something like that. So while this poem was being written, France was probably perceived not as a sort of a paradise, but a sort of a country that you might want to travel to if you are making your holiday or something like that. And then this beautiful France in the poem gets transformed into the battlefield and into the field full of dead bodies.
Yeah, well,
instead of being just a foreign country that you might be willing to explore, it happens to be an alien country which is also hostile, because that's where your friend, your comrade, has met his death. That's where you might meet your death. Well, that's where you are sitting endlessly in the trenches, waiting till death strikes you.
Yeah, let me just say that another possible reading of fields unsown could be the celestial fields. Not real fields, battlefields or other fields on earth, but like the sky, the heavens. Again, waiting for souls to arrive, or unsown in the sense that no mortal hand can touch it, maybe. So yeah, France, good point. Yeah, true. If you say, always it woke him, even in France. Again, if you don't think about war, then it's just, okay, a bit of traveling. It woke him at home, it woke him in France, he's traveling, the sun is following him. The sun is always with you. No matter where you go, the sun is always with you and wakes you. But then again, you remember that France is where the British soldiers were sent, mainly, for the most part. And then France, indeed, becomes a horrible place. So now we have some more specific setting, because in the beginning we don't know where it happens, if it's a real place, if it's an unreal place, if it's here, there, somewhere. Now we kind of know it's France. Maybe it's not France now, but at least we have something to hold upon. hold on to. Always it woke him. So again we have, what is this always? Oh, how is it always? We have once at home, always it woke him, even in France. What is always, what is even? How do they make us feel about the poem, what is happening here, the people in it?
Well, always meaning both at home, in the previous part of the life, the more the better part of life, but also always here on battlegrounds, and again the word always might mean that while you are asleep, you might have beautiful dreams that transport you from where you are.
Well, I don't really see it in here. They don't really talk about dreams.
But still, you sleep and you might forget about the war.
Or you may have nightmares, really.
Or you may have nightmares, and then the sun. Again, if you have nightmares, it's the sun that awakens you and helps you get rid of nightmares. If you dream of your family left back in England, then the sun awakes you and makes you realize that you are in the middle of the war and that you are in a strange country, which seems to be a bit negative here, thanks to the word even.
Yeah, France is negative.
France.
So I don't think we're talking about like having dreams. It's about being asleep or being dead and being awake, because what they want is to wake him. We repeat it, yeah? It's touch awoke him, always it woke him. If anything might rouse him now, yeah? Or they need to wake him up. Like, he's not dead, he's asleep. That's the details are not interesting. We're not interested in whether he's seeing good dreams or bad dreams. We are interested in seeing how now he's dead or asleep, now he's alive, awoken, and the sun always woke him. Again, it's the faith of the people who do it, who say it. Always it woke him, and if it always woke him, then it must do it now again. Again, maybe they're trying to persuade themselves, like it has to work, has always worked. Even in France, again, you go to bed, you don't know if you will wake up in the morning. Each time it's a miracle. But as it happens every day, you stop paying attention to it. Yeah? You stop thinking about it. You think it's... you take it for granted. It's not. Lots of people die in their sleep. Every night. So it's not for granted. And always it woke him, even in France. And again, it's how people think. If something has worked in the past, then you tend to believe that it will work today, even if today is a different day. It's almost as if they're daring it, saying, oh, can't you do it? You have to do it. Just do it. We don't believe that you can't. Because if you can't, then there's no hope at all. And again, as you read it, it's kind of very touching, because they care about him. They don't say like, oh, he is dead, just leave him there. They're trying to do something about him, trying to help him. And they're helpless. They're helpless kittens themselves. They can't help him, they can't help themselves, but they're still trying. Again, how do we feel about it? Are they stupid? Are they naive? Are they brave?
Well, they are naive, certainly, if they're trying to do that. They are brave because they don't just let him lie there unattended. They show there's lots of what's human left in them, despite the war. Despite the war that very often deprives us of sleep, maybe deprives us of what we are accustomed to in our normal lives, and also deprives us of important human qualities. And again, this feeling that death is something unnatural, something just that could only happen in theory, but cannot happen to the person you know, cannot happen. This is put to the test when they encounter their comrade's death. That's just impossible, because many things are possible. Many things that seem impossible are in fact possible, and you might endure hardships of the war. You might take part in a fight even though you are exhausted, and so on. So you might do the things to your body, you might do lots of things to your soul to keep you going, and then suddenly it stops. Whatever you do to your friend, whatever he might have, is no longer relevant because he's dead, and that's fine.
Yeah. Then again, if we kind of keep in mind that the sun can be like God, who kindly revives us every morning, and they're like, what? Why not now? And doesn't it say that we resurrect, that we come back? Why not now? What are you waiting for? Look here, it says in the book that when you die, you come back later. Right? Oh, what? Here, we move him into your light, as we should. Why is he not awakened yet? Again, maybe that too. Why don't you bring him back immediately, just now? How is it working? How is it not working? So we have always, which is a strong statement, and even in France, to make it even stronger. So it feels like a paradox to them. Until this morning and this snow. Morning is the time when people wake up. He doesn't. A major paradox. Yeah, because morning is, again, the time of the beginnings. Time of a new life. It's not very usual, because usually when people talk about death, it's connected with evening, night, going into the night, boring. Here it's much stronger, because morning comes and he's still asleep. Shouldn't be so. So morning becomes morning with you. And this snow, and sun becomes snow, and again, like you may say, it's spring turning into winter, which is more conventional. and now we have some feeling of the surrounding for the first time, because we couldn't see where they were, who they are. We don't see any, now we know it might be or might not be in France. Now we know there might or might not be some snow. Again, we're not even sure if it's real snow or if it's just the feelings, coldness, cold morning again. This morning and this snow also. Again, snow is important here. Snow is a part of the settings. What time is it? It's snow. And again we have no, like denial. No, snow. Yeah. I guess you can read it in such a way that you will hear them wailing, and so, and woke him, and morning, and snow. Can be read that way. So now, again, interestingly, move him into the sun. We have snow and the sun and the snow. And apparently now he's lying in snow, which again, you wouldn't think as a comfortable position for a living person. But the dead one doesn't care, apparently.
Yeah.
And move him into the sun. Even there, you importantly, you feel that they're outside. They're not in a room, not in a building. They're somewhere out in the field. He's not dying in a hospital, not within a field hospital. He's somewhere under the open sky.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and yes, and there's snow also reminds me of how a typical cemetery looks like in winter, where all the graves are covered with hefty portions of snow,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a sort of it seems to be natural at the cemetery. It looks like a sort of a dome, a sort of something that's just keeps sort of keeps the dead comfortable and nice where they are.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very unnatural here because it might not be winter. It might not be. This. Well, it's something that you
Mm-hmm.
they don't really want to happen. You don't want this body to be covered with snow,
Mm-hmm.
and again, this feeling of helplessness. Okay, we can get him to the doctor. It's no use. The doctor might do something, might make some surgery, but this is not even discussed in the poem because they have already discovered it's absolutely
Mm-hmm.
useless.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor won't be able to do anything. So it's only up to the sun to do something. And the sun, the old good sun, seems to be powerless too.
Mm-hmm.
And the snow gets much more powerful than the sun is. Although usually it works the other way around, where the sun during the spring melts snow
Mm-hmm.
to So no such thing is going to happen here in the poem.
So we don't know if it's deep in winter and they have lots of snow, or if it's just a little bit of odd snow in some warmer time, if it's autumn or spring. We don't know. But we have snow in it, and with it, again, we have white, we have cold, and we have muffled, again, quiet, if you have snow. Again, we can have different kinds of snow, but they don't talk about a snowstorm. Apparently, it's just snow. So cold morning, cold snow, and this morning, this snow. Yeah.
Now, again, talking about snow, it might be just a thin layer of snow because it's France, and
you don't get much snow in France.
They don't get much snow, and very often it might look quite depressing. Patches of the ground covered by a very thin layer of snow. This looks as if you are somewhere halfway to spring or halfway to real winter, with lots of snow, with lots of cold days and so on. So you are somewhere in the middle, and you still hope that your friend is in the middle, that he's probably made a step to death, but he's still with us, at least his other foot is still in our reality. And then you realize that there's nothing about this being in the middle state. He's already there. It probably took a second or even less for him to move from here to there. And now, whatever you do, whatever you ask of the sun is useless.
So we have some interesting moments here, some interesting details. Then again, if you think about who is it who's talking, if it's his comrades, how do they know about what the son was whispering to him at home? So there's some deep connection between them. They know all about him, even such personal details, because literally they're one body. They're not different people, we are one and the same in it. And I guess they heard the same whispers, so they know that he heard it too. And snow, this morning and this snow, maybe it's like, it's too much for them to look at him, and they look away for a second. They see snow, because they're not really interested in the landscape. They're interested in him and bringing him back. Now they notice there's some snow, so they mention it as well, maybe. Oh, this snow. If anything might rouse him now, the kind old sun will know. So again, their faith always it woke him, so it will wake him now. The sun will know. If anything might rouse him now.
Yeah, and while the rest of the facts in the poem are more or less blank, we don't know if snow is beautiful or just greyish and something. We don't know much else, but it's the sun that has this positive attributes in the poem. I think in the first stanza, it's the only phenomenon that is mentioned with some positive feelings towards it. Good old sun, the sun that knows how to revive everything and everyone.
So yeah, we talk about the sun. Apparently we mean God, and God is gentle, and it can whisper to you. The sun can whisper to you about your future, present, past, and it wakes you. The God wakes you, and it's not like God wants to kill you. It's not like God enjoys your death. If the sun can help you, it will. But there are moments when even the sun can't help you because it's time. A kind, again, gentle, kind. There's no evil thoughts or intentions in what is happening. And old. Why say that the sun is old?
Old, maybe because it's seen lots of things. It knows a lot. It has this sort of experience that old people have. Also, it reminds us of this dead soldier's family, which might include people who are older than him, because he's probably very young. We don't know yet, but at least we might guess he's left his parents behind, he's left his grandparents, he's probably, again, because the fields are mentioned, he's probably is part of a very traditional English.
Oh, it doesn't have to be literal.
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to relate to him in person.
Yeah, but still, there's something that, and of course, the old sun is the sun that is familiar to us. That is positive. That is that's certainly helpful. It usually wakens us in the mornings. It usually awakens the seeds in the field in springtime, and we don't expect any evil from it. We look up to it as probably the only thing that remains in our world that is close to us, despite the fact it's very far away out there.
Who says so? Do you really believe that rubbish? There's a theory, and I like it. There's a theory which says the stars, planets, the sun are not just shouldn't be just taken again literally. It can represent your power, your wisdom, and as long as you believe that they're somewhere far away in some cosmic distance, that's where you place your power, your wisdom. So who says so? Scientists, what do they know? What do we all know? I mean, look at how we perceive our reality. We get maybe half of the picture, and we base our assumptions on just half of the picture, if not less than half of the picture. If we have the visible side, perceivable side, there has to be unperceivable side as well. We know it is there, and we have no idea what there is. So how can we make any suggestions when we have no idea of the other side, no conscious idea of the other side? So any theories which we have explanations of how the universe is working, it's just that theories, and who says that one theory is better than another? Who knows? Well, anyway, so the sun here is not far away. The sun here is attentive. It knows about you. It talks to you. It attends to you. It cares. The sun cares. The sun is not a far away, stupid gas ball, something. It's not gas anyway. It's electromagnetic. It's alive. It's here. It touches you. There's direct connection. Again, if you think about God, God isn't far away. God is here, listening, talking, touching, caring. Yeah, in the poem here. If anything might arouse him now, the kind old son will know. But again, here they talk about things. But he's beyond things now. Yeah, so things will not help him. And rouse again, not wake him now, rouse him now. Why rouse? Maybe like rising from the dead, rouse like not just wake up, but move him emotionally more deeply, maybe, or interest him. The kind old sun will know.
Yeah. The rising sun means there's a full day ahead. The rising of the person means he's got a full life ahead of him, and maybe because he's now in this position that is only possible for the sun to rise him. It also means that we expect the sun to do the trick, and a new life opening up for him. So what sort of, we want him to rise again. What sort of life do we want for him? Do we want him to rise again in the midst of the war, in the trench?
Yeah, exactly.
No, we want him to link to something which is real, as much as this war is very artificial, unexpected, terrifying, and so on. And again, the sun's function is going to be very optimistic. It's going to put an end to all the hardships we are facing. And it's a well-known fact that many people who went through the war say they now appreciate normal lives better. They no longer take their life for granted. So if he is to be awakened, he is to be roused, that he'll rise with this new knowledge and new feeling and understanding of what life is all about. But it won't. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I've just listened to an audio story yesterday, and it was exactly about that. There was a big war. So it's a science fiction, but it doesn't matter. There was a big war between two really powerful species, and it was big. It affected the whole universe, many galaxies, many species, and one of them found a way of bringing their dead back. So there were another species who were wiped out of existence. They're dead. They don't exist anymore. They found a way. What they did is, for each falling soldier of their own, they would bring back one of the people of the dead species. And they were like artists. They were peaceful people, just beautiful species. And they would kind of transfer their life energy to their soldiers. So what would you say about that? Would you say it's a good idea? So the first species are already dead. They don't exist. The other guys killed all of them like they never existed. And the other guys are really, really evil. The other guys only want to destroy everyone else. That's all they want. And this species who are fighting them are the only species who are powerful enough to fight them. And they found that way of bringing their soldiers back. So, what do you think about it? Is it a good idea?
Well, it looks like a good idea, but since you are asking, it's probably not.
No, I'm asking you because you can say it's a good idea, you can say it's a bad idea. There's always two sides at least. You can say it's a good idea because they can keep on fighting, or you can say it's a bad idea because they're using someone else's life force, or you can say it's a good idea because the soldiers can be alive again, or you can say it's a bad idea because all they meet is dying again and again in the war, only to be resurrected and killed again and resurrected again.
Yeah.
So it might be science fiction, but it has some interesting deep questions. What would you say?
Oh yeah. And then it becomes a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Rising again, to fight again, to face death again, and to maybe be killed again.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds terrifying.
So they're trying to bring him back, to wake him. They didn't really ask him. It's just their idea that being alive is better than being dead, and you can hardly argue with that in general. Okay, so what we have here, what else do we have here? We have old sun. It's like it's seen all of that many times before. They are like children, but the sun is old, the sun knows it. Maybe it's tired. And a kind old sun. They are trying to reach the only kindness which is available, which is not from people, which is from the sky, from the sun. They need kindness. Maybe it's lack of kindness that kills them. Well, maybe not maybe. And if we look at rhymes, let's say rhymes, then we have unsown becoming snow. So first it's just empty, and then we have snow on it. And then we have now, which is a bit different. And then it comes back to no, 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 no. Snow will no. So on one hand it's a positive statement, at the same time we end again with a no. Nay, no. Okay, let's have a little break.